Hello, everyone, fellow stargazers. This is Dr. Vicky speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center. And we're going to look at the astrology for the sign of Cancer, my sign. Could I remember it? For the year 2024. This will be a general reading for the year, just general trends, nothing too specific. If you're interested in more specific things, I would suggest you check out my tarot scopes at the beginning of each month, where I go into a little bit more deeply the astrology of the month for whatever sign I'm doing the scope on, followed by a card reading. If you need more astrology, I do weekly astrology looking at the major aspects of the week. I generally do those weekly. Sometimes I can get away with doing it bi-weekly or monthly. It depends on what's going on in the sky at the time. But the way things have been going, it's a week by week thing because there's just so much transformational change, and 2024 is not going to be much different. It might be even a little bit more intense in 2024. Before we get to the astrology of the year, I did pick an oracle card, and I picked from this deck right here, which is the Soul Flower Plant Spirit Oracle by Lisa Estabrook. This is published by Finhorn Press. And it's a lovely little deck, and it's got all the plants, the medicinal values. You get a whole long like description, but I'm just going to read from the card. And for Cancer for the year 2024, we get Forget Me Not Awareness. Forget Me Not. Interesting card, for the Cancer who's extraordinarily sensitive. Oh, excuse me. Forget Me Not wants to raise your awareness of your connections, not just to loved ones, but to all beings in all realms, including yourself. When you can understand this connection, you can let go of the fears of loneliness, isolation, and separation because you realize the true immortal nature of your divine soul. So to say you are never alone would be an understatement. All right, Cancer. All right, let's get into the actual chart. All right, so we're looking at, excuse me, the sign of Cancer. Cancer is a cardinal water sign. Your mantra, Cancer, is I feel, don't we know it? And the ruling planet is the moon, And of course, the moon is the most changeable of um, planetary energies, in that every 2.5 days it changes signs. And so we go through the whole gamut of the feelings of the zodiac through the moon, right? Every month, as they say. And so because it's the moon is constantly interacting with its environment, sort of seeing how it feels and reacts and responds to it. The major look for Cancer as being a sign ruled by the moon is to look at the eclipses. So we'll take a look at the eclipses first, and then we'll get to the other planets. Now, of course, eclipses can only happen at full moons and new moons, and they can only happen at the nodes of the moon. The nodes of the moon is considered the karmic axis. The present moment, the present nodes of the moon are in Aries and Libra. The north node, the direction forward, is in Aries. The release point, the letting go, is in Libra. And so in general, we're moving into our sense of self, Aries, and we are letting go of relationships or ways of relating that no longer serve us. So as a Cancer, you have these nodes are sitting in your 10th house and your 4th house. The North Node in your 10th house is asking you to go out into the world. It is time for you to go out into the world and to express yourself, to be your unique self, Aries. Okay. And the South Node is in the 4th house. And the 4th house can be parental stuff. Well, so is the 10th house, really, but family stuff, family of origin issues, ancestors, things like that. It is also the house of the soul. With the South Node there, there is a sort of a reevaluation of your relationships, how perhaps your raising, how you were raised, has affected your relationships. And what ways of relating do we need to let go of at that, in that time? Now, we have two North Node eclipses that are happening in March and April, and two South Node eclipses happening in, let's see, when do they happen? September and October. So we'll start with the first one that happens. The first one is a full moon lunar eclipse at 7 degrees of Libra. And so we can see that here. This is it's an awareness. Full moons are always about awareness. Of course, the sun, of course, is at 7 degrees of Aries. And so we have this opposition. Full moon brings full illumination. And so you may be illuminated to some of the maybe dysfunctional ways in which you relate to your family, or how your relationships are influenced by your relationship to your family. Okay. That's occurring on the 25th of March. So we have the full moon eclipse, and then we have the new moon eclipse. So in this series of eclipses, we start with full moons, and the eclipse season sort of comes to an end with the new moon. So that indicates that there's an illumination prior to the new sort of direction you're going to take with the new moon. We have a new moon solar eclipse. That's the next eclipse that happens. That happens on the 8th of April. That is a total solar eclipse. It is going to be seen across the United States from, I think, Maine to Texas, and it crosses sort of this way. Now, in 2017, we had one that went from Oregon to, I think, South Carolina. And so there is a point where these two eclipses will cross. Southern Illinois, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, that area. That's where it's happening. And we'll see what happens, with the United States, as it were. And the United States is a Cancer country. So there is a certain resonance with the astrology for Cancer, for the whole country of the United States, taking a leadership role, right? But renegotiating old contracts. Okay. All right. Then we also have the South Node eclipses, and these are the eclipses connected to the letting go. The spring eclipses were about moving forward in a new direction. And so we have the South Node eclipse. The first one is a full moon lunar eclipse at 26 degrees of Pisces. Now that does not fall in your 10th house. That's where the nodes are, but it will be close enough to the nodes to be an eclipse, and it's in your 9th house. And so here's another illumination. And because it's a South Node eclipse, it's more about letting go. And because it's in the 9th house, perhaps we're letting go of beliefs that we had that no longer serve us. That could be connected to our family of origin, as well as in we generally get our sort of religious indoctrination through our families generally, right? And that happens on the 19th of September. And then on the 2nd of October, we have a new moon solar eclipse that's happening at 11 degrees of Libra, and that is down here in the 4th house. And so it's about new beginnings, because it's a new way to relate. So we've had an opportunity to kind of really evaluate our sense of security, because we're dealing with the axis of the 10th and the 4th house. We're dealing with issues of parental issues, whether working with or taking care of your parents, or how your parents raised you, things about the past coming up, family stuff coming up to be resolved and to be healed, as it was to evolve through. All right. So the other things that are going on this year is Mercury has 3 retrogrades, which is okay because usually sometimes it has 4, so we only have 3. If you don't include like the first day of the year, which Mercury is retrograde and then turns direct either on the first or the second, depending on where you are. So we're not going to count that Mercury retrograde. We'll just count the ones where we have a full Mercury retrograde. And the first one occurs in the sign of Aries, the second one occurs in Virgo, Leo, and the third one occurs in Sagittarius, meaning that for the most part, Mercury's retrograde in the fire signs. Fire is about inspiration, okay? Fire is spirituality. Fire is creativity. Fire is belief. Fire is beingness. And so we're going to reevaluate all of that as Mercury goes through those signs. Now, the Mercury retrogrades, we have the first one on, of all days, April Fool's Day, April 1st. It starts at 28 degrees of Aries and will move back to 17 degrees of Aries. So if you have any planets between those 2 degrees, Mercury is going to go over them 3 times. And it goes direct on the 25th. So it's retrograde for about 24 days. And it goes direct at 17 degrees of Aries. The second retrograde period occurs beginning August 5th. At that point, Mercury is at 4 degrees of Virgo, a Mercury ruled sign, no less. And but then it moves back into Leo, and it's in Leo, 22 degrees of Leo. So it spends more time in Leo than it does in Virgo. And then the last one occurs beginning the 26th of November until December 14th. So that's like Thanksgiving and the 2 weeks before Christmas kind of energy, with Mercury retrograde, and it's Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. It goes from 22 degrees of Sagittarius to 7 degrees of Sagittarius before it turns direct. And of course, Sagittarius is what we believe. It has to do with our beliefs. So there'll be a reevaluation of our beliefs or our relationship to truth, and the like. And of course, we have the presidential election this year. So this will be on the other side of that. We'll see whose beliefs shift, right? Okay. Excuse me. Mars, the planet of energy, starts the year at about 28 degrees of Sagittarius and makes it all the way to 6-7 degrees of Leo before it turns retrograde. It does go retrograde this year, but it doesn't go retrograde until the 12th, till the 6th of December, 12/6. And so for the most part, Mars is moving through the zodiac relatively quickly. As it gets closer to its retrograde station, it will slow down quite a bit. So what happens for you is it starts in your house of health, right at the end of your house of health, moves through your house of relationships, your 7th and 8th house, moves through your house of moral and ethics, your 9th house, 10th house, 11th house, 12th house, okay, 1st house, and then it enters that 2nd house. It goes retrograde and then goes back into the 1st house for you. So there's a lot of your energy is out in the world. There isn't a whole lot of, at least from Mars, energy towards the more introspective, the more hidden side of you. Everything is happening out in a way in the public eye, interacting with people. So just know that you're going to have a busy year with that kind of energy being out there amongst the folks, as it were. Jupiter, the planet of expansion and understanding, our philosophy, is in Taurus, and it actually is in Taurus till the 25th of May when it moves into Gemini. Now, it's been in Taurus. It's in Taurus for about a year. It began its Taurus journey last year in May, at May 2023, and it's been moving through. Taurus is money, but it's also resources. It's what we value, and it's our essential needs. And so there's been an expansion of both our essential needs, like people need stuff, that's been expanded. Couldn't understand that. But also there has been resources coming in the United States, as a point of fact. Although most people who don't have like investments don't really realize this, but the economy is really good. If you're just living paycheck to paycheck and you have to buy food for your family, it doesn't seem like the economy is doing good, but there are a lot of people working here anyway. So Jupiter then, once it moves into Gemini, it moves into your 12th house, Cancer. And Jupiter likes being in the 12th house. And in Gemini, there's a lot of information coming in through your sleep, and sort of a lot of psychic information coming in. So you just have to be aware that it may be a little bit harder to sleep after May 25th. What you can do is you can, listen to binaural beats, or, do some meditation. There's some breathing exercises you can do to help you sleep. And I would keep a pad of paper, so when you wake up and you have a thought, you can write it down or record it, because there's information coming in through that 12th house. Saturn is in Pisces in your 9th house. You are challenging your beliefs, challenging what you think is true and what's not true, holding you responsible maybe for certain things. But Saturn actually does like being up in the 9th house, almost as much as it likes being up in the 10th house. Saturn likes to be sort of large and in charge and up at the top of the pile, so to speak. But we are going through the process of sort of really coming to terms with what we believe. And it is in Pisces, so there can be a religious or a spiritual overtone to that as well. And it's there all year, because it goes, I think the highest point that Saturn goes is about 20 degrees of Pisces before it backs up again. So I think it starts at 5, goes to 20, backs up, and then leaves. Saturn actually, let's see, I have it here. Saturn goes retrograde on the 29th of June, and then goes direct on the 14th of November. So from the end of June, so we'll say July, August, September, October, and half of November, Saturn is retrograde, going over the areas that it had moved forward on. Okay, so if you have things in Pisces, there's a evaluation to be had. Those people born in 65 are having their Saturn returns. So their second Saturn returns. All right. Saturn. Uranus is in Taurus there for 7 years in that 11th house of networks. This is a time when you can find your tribe, and your tribe is going to be kind of different. So searching for the tribe, Uranus through that sort of opens us up, lights things up. The 11th house can be a trauma house. And so if there's been previous trauma, that could come out when Uranus is moving through that, especially past life trauma, when perhaps we lived in a more tribal setting. Neptune is in Pisces. It actually makes it to the last degree of Pisces this year, but does not move into Aries. And so it stays in Pisces, and it goes about like 4 degrees through Pisces this year, all in that 9th house, again, with it's been there for a while. It's been there since 2011. So it's been sitting there, it's been fomenting. Now Saturn comes across and sort of like takes all of the in a way work or spiritualization that's happened through Neptune in that house, and sort of tests it. What works, what doesn't work, what works, what doesn't work, what works. So by the time Saturn moves out of that ninth house and moves into the 10th house, you'll have a better idea of what beliefs you will continue to have and which ones is it time to let go of, and have a new vision or and a new understanding of your place in the world. And then Pluto is in Capricorn as the year begins. On the 20th of January, it slips back into Aquarius, where it stays until September 3rd. On September 3rd, it actually goes retrograde. It goes retrograde on May 2nd. By that time, it has reached 2 degrees and 6 minutes of Aquarius, but then it goes retrograde, and on the 3rd it goes back into Capricorn, where it will stay until November 20th, when it moves back into Aquarius. Happy birthday, President Biden. So the last sort of gasp of Pluto in Capricorn, which is in your house of relationship, Cancer, okay? And then it slips into your other house of relationship, which is the 8th house, the house of transformation. And it's going to be there for a long, long, long time. But Pluto likes being in that house, so not to fret about that. But this last gasp of Capricorn is the last degree of Capricorn. So it is the period at the end of a relatively long sentence that began in 2008. So fun times, guys, fun times. All right, I think that's all I want to say about that. Let me escape. Okay, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to escape. Oh, there we go. I pressed the right button. All right. Okay, guys, so hopefully you'll find this helpful. If you want a month by month, check out my taroscopes at the beginning of the month. I always go over the astrology of each sign along with a tarot reading. If you like astrology every day, check out my morning walks through my garden. I do weekly astrology talks, what's going on this week, the important aspects and the like. You can support me by giving me a thumbs up or a like. You can support me in a little bit more of an active way through Patreon. It's much appreciated. The more, actually, the more I can, the more people that become patrons, the more work I can do for everyone. So that would be great. But until I see you again, have a wonderful year. I know I'll see you before then, but I might as well say it because this is a yearly thing, right? Have a wonderful year. Take care of yourself, and namaste.